When Tommy Rees took over play calling, Kevin Stefanski, it looked like a sign of change. But what followed was a masterclass in illusion, a move designed to calm critics without altering the core dysfunction. As the Browns continue to sink, it's clear that Stefanski's grip on power remains intact, especially in his unyielding decision to bench. This isn't a team out of answers, it's a team refusing to ask the right questions. Every signal, from the draft to the depth chart, screams that politics, not performance, guide the Browns' decisions. Cleveland's real opponent isn't on the field, it's within its own walls. Until leadership prioritizes growth over ego and gives players like Sanders the chance they've earned, the Browns will keep choosing control over progress. And no amount of cosmetic changes will hide that kind of failure. Kevin Stefanski would rather go down with the ship than give Shedeur Sanders the wheel. That's not speculation anymore. It's become the defining truth of the Cleveland Browns' 2025 season. While the team sputters to a 2-6 record and wastes a historic defensive campaign, Stefanski clings to a quarterback choice that almost no one can justify anymore. Not the fans, not the analysts, and not the numbers. At this point, his refusal to start Sanders isn't about development. It's about control. And that's where this story shifts from frustrating to dangerous. Shedeur Sanders didn't come into the league as a raw project or a long-shot gamble. He came in with leadership credentials, pro-level discipline, and a football IQ that's already turned heads across the league.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
He's not only prepared, he's wanted. By the fans, by neutral analysts, and arguably, by a locker room that's clearly lost faith in the current direction. But the opportunity? Still denied. Not for football reasons. Not for on-field readiness. But because Stefanski refuses to relinquish the narrative. That narrative is being protected at all costs, even if it means alienating a fan base that's already hanging on by a thread. Even if it means letting the best defense Cleveland has had in a decade carry the weight of a crumbling offense. And even if it means turning what could have been a developmental breakout into yet another Browns cautionary tale. This is the difference between leadership and self-preservation. Stefanski has chosen the latter. Let's talk about Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback Stefanski continues to back publicly despite overwhelming evidence that it's not working. There's nothing personal about this. Gabriel is capable, just smart, but he's not performing. The offense is flat, the rhythm is off, and the spark just isn't there. Every week, it becomes more obvious that keeping him in the starting role has less to do with results and more to do with alignment, professional, political, and potentially contractual. The rumors about agency ties between Stefanski and Gabriel? Those haven't gone away. They've only gotten louder as the games have gotten worse. And while unconfirmed, they're not hard to believe, especially when the decisions being made seem more like internal loyalty tests than game day strategy. And then there's the issue of play calling. Stefanski made headlines when he handed over those duties to offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, signaling some kind of shift or accountability. But the offense hasn't improved. The scheme is still stale, the quarterback still struggles, and the production is still near the bottom of the league. It was a cosmetic move. A convenient scapegoat moment that never addressed the core problem. Who's under center and why? That why is the question everyone's asking now. Not just the media, but fans who've stuck with this team through some of the most painful rebuilds in sports. And now, just when Cleveland should be entering its golden era, armed with a dominant defense, young talent, and a fresh quarterback waiting in the wings, they're stuck. Stuck because the coach refuses to budge. And here's where the NFL-wide context starts to matter. There's a growing conversation about how Sanders was evaluated during the draft process and why he slipped further than his resume would suggest. A lot of those questions trace back to things that have nothing to do with football. His family name. His confidence. The fact that he's a visible, vocal player who isn't afraid of the spotlight. The NFL has never been great at embracing that kind of player unless they come in through the right channels or with the right backers. And that discomfort with personality, especially when it comes from someone who knows his value, has translated into hesitation, into doubt. into excuses. And now that same attitude has taken hold in Cleveland, where the coach seems more afraid of Sanders' star power than excited about what it could bring to the field. It's ironic. Teams spend years looking for leadership, composure, and talent at quarterback. They spend millions scouting it, trading for it, chasing it in the offseason. And now that Cleveland has it on the roster, they're letting it rot because it threatens to disrupt the status quo. The Browns didn't just mishandle a rookie's development. They've built a wall around him to preserve a hierarchy that clearly isn't working. That's not oversight. That's sabotage, unintentional or not. Every week this continues, it gets harder to justify. It's no longer a football decision, it's a philosophical one. Will the Browns move forward with a culture built on growth, risk-taking, and adaptation? Or will they double down on internal politics, protect fragile egos, and call it trusting the process until the season quietly slips away? That choice is coming to a head and fast. The fans are fed up. The media has stopped softening its language. The mood in Cleveland isn't disappointment anymore. It's suspicion. Suspicion that the people in charge aren't putting the team first. Suspicion that Sanders is being kept off the field not because he's unready, but because he's inconvenient. There's no hiding behind rookie learning curves when your team is 2-6. There's no hiding behind development takes time when the veteran ahead of him is averaging 1 touchdown per game and struggling to hit intermediate routes. And there's definitely no hiding from a fan base that knows a cover-up when they see one. This is not about starting a rookie to save the year. It's about refusing to let a promising future die in the name of power retention. And let's not overlook the human cost here. Shedeur Sanders is doing everything right. He's preparing. He's staying professional. He's not causing a scene, even as the narrative around him gets more twisted every week. He wants to play. He's ready to play. And every time the Browns take the field without him, they're wasting not only his talent but his trust. When you draft a quarterback with this much potential and then sit him behind a system that clearly isn't built to win, you're not just hurting your team. You're sending a message to everyone watching that merit doesn't matter. That politics win. That control beats courage. That's not how you build a contender. That's how you build resentment. From the fans. From the players. From the future stars who are watching how this organization treats the very thing it claims to value most, talent. This moment could still be salvaged, but only if leadership is willing to let go of the illusion that they've got everything under control. They don't. The record shows it. The film shows it. And unless Stefanski stops doubling down on the wrong quarterback for the wrong reasons, it'll be too late. If you're watching this train wreck in real time and wondering how the Browns keep ending up in the same cycle, drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Shedeur be starting already? Do you believe this is about football or something deeper? Smash that like button if you're tired of watching leadership sabotage potential. Share this with another Browns fan who's still holding on to hope. And subscribe because this franchise has a choice to make, and we'll be right here to break it all down when the next domino falls. Let's be absolutely clear about where the Cleveland Browns are right now. This isn't just about a quarterback controversy. This is a referendum on leadership, accountability, and what kind of franchise the Browns want to be. Every minute Shedeur Sanders stays on the bench while Kevin Stefanski rides a crumbling offense into the ground, the message being sent is deafening. It's not about who's best for the team. It's about who's best for the coach. And that's where things go from bad to toxic. It's not just the fans who see it, it's the players. You don't think they've noticed that this isn't about performance anymore? That the guy lighting up practice, the guy with pedigree, presence, and the potential to spark the offense, isn't even getting a snap? You can't fake it in the NFL locker room. Players know who the best guy is. They know when a coach is making decisions based on politics, not production. And when that happens, trust dies. You can't build a winning team without trust in leadership. When guys start seeing that accountability only applies to some people, that loyalty matters more than results, it eats the culture from the inside out. That's what Stefanski is risking right now. Not just his record, not just his job. He's risking the locker room, the buy-in, the very foundation this team should be building on. It's one thing to have a struggling season. It's another thing entirely to sabotage your own potential. Let's go back to the play-calling situation. Stefanski handed the reins to Tommy Rees, which, at the time, looked like a step in the right direction. Accountability. A willingness to adapt. But what did it really accomplish? Nothing changed. The offense is still stuck in neutral. The passing game is conservative. The rhythm is non-existent. And the quarterback at the center of it all still can't get the job done. That wasn't a solution. It was deflection. A way to buy time and pretend adjustments were being made while the most obvious change, the quarterback, remains untouched. And we know why. Starting Sanders means opening a door Stefanski's not ready to walk through. Because the second that kid steps on the field and breathes life into the offense, everything shifts. The excuses collapse. The last 2 months are exposed for what they were: a coach prioritizing pride over performance, control over competition. It's a gamble, sure, but it's one Stefanski isn't willing to take. Because it's not just about wins and losses. It's about being outshined. About being proven wrong. And that fear? It's paralyzing the team. The irony is, Sanders doesn't even have to be perfect. He just has to be better than what's currently out there, which, let's be honest, is a very low bar. He doesn't need to come in and throw 4 touchdowns a game. He just needs to give the offense a pulse. A spark. Something, anything, that shows this team isn't sleepwalking through another wasted season. Right now, it's lifeless. Predictable. And that predictability is Stefanski's doing. It's hard to look at this situation and not see a broader pattern that's plagued the Browns for years. Talented players sidelined. Front offices afraid to take risks. Coaches who talk about culture and growth while refusing to make the hard calls that would actually demonstrate those values. Shedeur Sanders should have been the hard call that ignited this team. Instead, he's the elephant in the room. Everyone knows he's ready, but no one in leadership has the courage to admit it. The draft process alone was already strange. Sanders falling as far as he did made headlines for all the wrong reasons. It wasn't about ability. It was about perception. Narrative. Teams were hesitant, not because of what he could do, but because of who he is. Confident. Outspoken. Connected. That shouldn't be a red flag. It should be exactly what a team like Cleveland needs. A quarterback who knows who he is and isn't afraid of the moment. But in this league, that confidence gets misread as arrogance. That swagger gets misinterpreted as threat. And now, in Cleveland, it's being treated like a liability instead of an asset. That's not just wrong, it's backwards. Because right now, the Browns don't just need a quarterback. They need leadership on the field. Energy. Belief. They need someone the offense can rally behind. And Sanders, more than anyone else on that depth chart, fits that mold. The fact that he's been denied that chance, despite the record, despite the performance of the current starter, despite the cries from every direction, is a failure. A failure of vision. A failure of courage. And a failure of leadership. And it's going to cost them. This team was built to contend. Not to win a Super Bowl this year, maybe, but to compete. To stay in the hunt. To take a step forward. And instead, they're spiraling backwards under the weight of a coach who refuses to change direction, even as the signs scream for it. If the front office doesn't step in soon, the damage will be irreversible. Fans are already tuning out. Players are losing faith. And the few bright spots on this roster, Garrett, Ward, Cooper, won't stick around for another rebuild if leadership doesn't start acting like they want to win. And what about Sanders? What happens to a rookie quarterback who comes into the league, does everything right, and still gets iced out by a coach who views him as a threat? That's how resentment starts. That's how you lose not just this season, but the next one too. Because no matter how talented he is, no matter how composed, everyone has a breaking point. And if the Browns turn this into another wasted opportunity, they won't just be repeating history. They'll be writing a new low. The Browns still have time to fix this. Not much, but enough. Enough to hand over the reins. Enough to say, we got it wrong, but we're going to make it right. Enough to prove that winning matters more than politics. But it has to happen now. There's no more benefit of the doubt. No more patience. No more, we're evaluating everything, while losing becomes the weekly routine. The fans see through it. The locker room sees through it. And the longer this charade continues, the more everyone will remember this season not as a disappointment, but as a disaster that was avoidable. This is no longer about a quarterback battle. It's about a war of identity inside the Cleveland Browns, a full-on clash between vision and vanity, between what could be and what leadership is too scared to admit already is. Let's call this exactly what it is. Kevin Stefanski has lost the plot. And the longer he keeps Shedeur Sanders off the field, the more damage he's doing, not just to this season, but to the very DNA of the franchise. Because this isn't growing pains. This isn't developing behind the scenes. This is deliberate sabotage of the Browns' best chance at revival. And it's rooted in fear. Stefanski is terrified. Not of losing games, he's already doing that, but of being overshadowed by a rookie quarterback who might actually fix the mess he created. Because let's be honest, Shedeur Sanders taking over and succeeding doesn't just elevate the offense. It shatters Stefanski's entire narrative. It exposes every week of denial, every presser full of coach speak, every quiet political decision disguised as game strategy. It lays the truth bare. And that truth is this: the Browns have been led by a man more committed to controlling the conversation than correcting the course. A man who seems to believe that sticking to a bad decision is more respectable than reversing it. But there's nothing respectable about letting a franchise collapse to protect your ego. Cleveland isn't out of talent. It's out of time. And fans know it. That's why the frustration has gone from passive disappointment to active rebellion. They're not just asking for a quarterback change. They're demanding an organizational awakening. A reset. A recognition that what's happening on the field is a symptom of something deeper, something rotten. And at the center of it all is Stefanski, holding tight to a plan that's unraveling week by week. Let's talk about what's really at stake. If Sanders starts and struggles, you gain clarity. You learn. You develop. You move forward. But if he starts and performs, which a lot of people believe he will, then it's over for Stefanski. Because that would mean every snap Gabriel took was a wasted opportunity. Every loss with him under center was a choice. And every fan who screamed for change was right. That's the part Stefanski can't stomach. But protecting yourself at the cost of your team? That's not coaching. That's cowardice. It's also insulting to the players, to the city, to the legacy of fans who've endured more heartbreak than most franchises combined. This city has been through the drive, the fumble, the move. And now they're living through the refusal. The refusal to do what's obvious. The refusal to bench what's broken. The refusal to embrace what could finally lift them out of the fog. The worst part? It didn't have to be this way. Stefanski had chances. After the third loss. After the fourth. After the press conferences turned from supportive to skeptical. After the locker room energy started shifting. Every week, there was a door he could have walked through, an opportunity to say, we're going to try something different. To be bold. To lead. And every week, he shut that door tighter. Even handing play calling to Tommy Rees, a move that looked like a shift, turned out to be hollow. Rees never had a chance to change anything while the same quarterback kept trotting out behind a broken offensive identity. The scheme wasn't the problem. It was who it was built around. And who Stefanski continues to build around. There's no redemption arc in this path. Only more excuses. And meanwhile, Sanders, who's done everything right, sits. No drama. No leaks. No public frustration. Just silent professionalism while his name trends on every Browns message board and sports show across the country. That's leadership. That's the guy you want behind center. Someone who could have let the chaos consume him, but chose instead to bide his time. Someone who's ready. Someone who wants the pressure. That kind of maturity isn't something you coach. It's something you trust. And the fact that the Browns won't even let that trust be tested? That's the tragedy. And for what? To protect a coaching staff that's already lost the faith of the fan base? To spare a few post-game questions from turning into accountability sessions? If Stefanski really believed in what's best for the team, Shedeur Sanders would have started weeks ago. The fact that he hasn't says it all. So what now? Another week of press conferences full of non-answers? Another Sunday of watching Gabriel check down on third and long? Another defensive masterclass wasted on a team that refuses to evolve? Because that's what it is now, refusal. Not strategy. Not process. Not patience. Refusal to adjust. Refusal to lead. Refusal to let go of power long enough to let the team breathe. This isn't just a lost season in the making. This is a test. A moment that will be remembered. Did the Browns finally step into the modern NFL and embrace change, risk, talent? Or did they do what they've always done? Stay stuck, stay scared, Because if Stefanski won't act, someone else needs to. Whether it's the front office, ownership, or the sheer weight of public pressure, something has to give. You can't let a generational defense go to waste while the offense is shackled by pride. You can't keep calling yourself a contender when the most dynamic quarterback on your roster hasn't touched the field. There is still time, but not much. Start Shedeur Sanders. Not for a headline. Not for a gimmick. But because he's the right player. Because the offense needs a leader. Because this locker room deserves clarity. And because the fans deserve a reason to believe again. They've shown up through every storm. They've endured every disappointment. They've earned better than this. So let Sanders play. Let him throw. Let him command. Let him fail if he must, but let him try. Because what the Browns are doing now, that's failure without even giving the future a chance. If you're tired of watching ego wreck this team week after week, drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Sanders already be the starter? Do you think the front office needs to step in before it's too late? Hit that like button if you've had enough of the politics. Share this with someone who still believes in what this team could be. And subscribe because however this ends, chaos or clarity, you know we'll be here to cover every second of it.